What's up, guys? Rob from Legit Minds Gaming here, bringing you some more Rainbow Six Siege gameplay. Today we are playing a ranked match on Clubhouse on Bomb because it's the only good game mode. If you're playing this game and you're not playing Bomb exclusively, you're doing yourself a disservice. But yeah, so this is ranked this time. Last time was some casual gameplay. This time we are going to be viewing some ranked, and today's topic that I wanted to talk about is high school. And I talked about college last time and about like going into college, and this time I want to take this opportunity to talk about high school from a retrospective look. So I've been out of high school for 3 years now, and I just wanted to kind of talk about what I thought about high school at the time, what I think about it now, stuff like that. So going into high school, I was not excited at all. I know a lot of kids in one way are excited about going into high school because they see it as that they're growing up, that they're finally stepping into, the big boy world of high school instead of middle school and elementary school. But I wasn't. I was very nervous my first day, like extremely nervous, which is something that's rare for me. I don't really get bothered by a lot of things. I'm not a very nervous person by nature. I don't get, frazzled very easily. I don't get none of that stuff. I'm very even in terms of my nerves. Like, I don't get nervous very often. But I was very nervous going into high school. I was not even keeled at all. I was scared because I didn't know where my classes were. I didn't know what the layout was. I didn't know any of the teachers. I didn't know any of the administrators, and pretty much for about, I'd say, the first 2 weeks, I just asked the security guards every single time I had another class where this and this classroom was. That was pretty much it. Every time I had a class, I would go up to a security guard and I would just be like, listen, where is this? I have no idea what I'm doing. And luckily for me, the security guards at my particular school were very helpful. They were very nice people. And they helped me out. They let me know where my classroom was. And then eventually I got a map of the school and I kind of started to figure out my way. But for those first 2 weeks, it was very rough. And one thing about the school that I went to is very packed. We had about 1,600 kids in the school. So in the hallways, when you would cross between, there's this one intersection of like 3 different areas. There was like the main entrance, then the one wing was the language wing, and then the other wing was like an administrative wing where they had a lot of offices and stuff along with some classrooms. And that hallway got jam-packed very quickly every day, so that was a pain. There's a lot more going on in high school than there was in middle school, so it was definitely an adjustment. But yeah, I was not very comfortable for a while. I wasn't scared of like the people so much. Like, I know going into high school, a lot of people have this like preconceived notion that everyone's gonna be a big bully and that tired. Everyone's gonna be a big bully, and that you're gonna get stuffed in a lockers and drowned in a toilet, and that's just not true. Not even close. Like, not at all. At least in my experience, nobody ever got stuffed into a locker or anything like that. But I wasn't scared of the people so much. Like, I wasn't really like intimidated or anything. Obviously the kids I was dealing with were bigger kids than I had been dealing with, but it wasn't really so much an intimidation thing. It was just like I wasn't comfortable in terms of I didn't know the building, and I didn't really know what to expect because going up in terms of a whole new school, you always think like, oh, I'm just gonna get so much homework now. I'm gonna be drowned in homework. I'm never gonna have any time to do anything with my friends. I'm never gonna have any time to do anything that I want to do, and I'm just gonna live this terrible life of going home, doing homework, and just sleeping to go back to school the next day. And that's also not true. In a lot of ways, high school sucks. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. In a lot of ways, it really does suck because you're going into the final 4 years of your primary education. So there's going to be a lot of pressure to do well from, if not your parents, from your your advisors or your administrators. And there's going to be a lot of this weird dynamic where your teachers are going to tell you that they're prepping you for college, especially if you start to take AP classes or advanced placement. They're going to start hitting you with the rhetoric that we're preparing you for college. And in a way they're not lying, but in a way they kind of are, because here's the thing. They say that they're prepping you for college, but in high school you still don't have the freedoms that you do in college. In college you can just, if you're in school and you're not feeling well, you can literally just leave. Like, that's on you. You can just go home and that's it. Like, it's up to you. In the middle of class, if you want to get up and go do something, it might be a little rude, but it's up to you. You can definitely do that. In terms of, like, if you just want to get a snack or something, if you need to use the restroom at any point, you just do it. And that's not the way high school operates at all, or at least not in my high school. It's very much the typical raise your hand if you need to leave the classroom. You need a pass to be in the hallway. If you want to go home, the nurse has to release you, just stuff like that. So, in a way, they are preparing you for college in that they're going to give you harder tests and stuff, but it's definitely not the same atmosphere. And in a way, I've actually kind of found, in a strange twist, that sometimes college is actually a little bit easier, because in high school, typically you take, you have, at least in my school, there was 9 periods of 40 minutes, but with 4 minutes in between each period to get to your next class. So, you're typically taking between, I'd say, 6 or 7 classes. Usually you get a lunch period, and then you get a gym period. So, if you don't count those 2 as academic classes, and you might have, like, say, an off period, or if you're taking an art or something like that, like an art or music, you're going to have between 6 or 7 classes that are just like academic classes in terms of your English, your history, your math, your science, and then usually some elective, and then maybe a language. So that's like 6 classes right there. And you could be going home each day with 6 things of homework that are due the next day. And typically, in my experience, it was only the math classes that really gave you homework every single day, which they kind of have to, because a lot of the topics build on themselves and you have to reinforce that. But you did, like, some classes you're going to get homework every day, and it kind of sucks sometimes, because you can get days where you go home with 6 things of homework that are due the very next day, and it just kind of blows. I found in college, at least the way my schools have always worked, and a majority of my friends' schools have always worked, the classes are every other day. So you either take, like, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, or like Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes. And so you have at least a day in between to do homework. And I really don't get homework that's due every other class. I've been in college for 3 years, and I've almost never had that happen. So yeah, in some ways, college is actually a little bit easier than high school, which is kind of weird in a way. But anyway, one of the things you have to take into account with high school, though, is that you are still in a primary school environment, so you're not going to have those kind of freedoms, and it kind of sucks. But one of the things that I definitely notice is the more higher, I guess, difficulty, you'd say, classes that I was taking. So the way it worked in my school district was there was the basic level classes, which were just called the Regents level classes. Then there was honors level classes, and then there was AP level classes. So and then there was also college level classes, which were kind of in between honors and AP. Like, you didn't take an AP test, but you could still get college credit for it. And they were kind of a tweener class. But if you took the Regents level classes, you would only take the Regents. If you took an honors level class, you would only take the Regents, but the material would be going over a little bit faster. You'd do a little bit more in a year. If you took a college level class, you would take usually a proficiency exam of some sort. I only had this happen in my Spanish class. I don't know. I also had pre-calculus. That was a college level class, so I had 2. where if you pass the class, you'd pay at the beginning of the year, you'd sign up and say, if I pass this class, it's going to count as college credit. And then if you take an AP test, you take the AP test, the advanced placement test. You also take any regents that you have to take that year, but once you're in an AP level class, the regents is kind of a joke. And when you first take a regents, you're like, oh my god, regents test is so hard. And then you take an AP test, and the regents is like actually just a total like laughable instance. I once had a time where I was taking an English regents. I was in AP literature and composition that year, and the day of the English regents, I got very, very sick. I was like, I had a headache. I had like the sweats. Like I was shaking. Like it was just a really bad day, and I literally wrote like maybe 3 sentences for the essays on the English test, and I just did not do well like at all. I wasn't focused. I got like an 8, and I pulled an 80 on that test. So like even on like one of the worst days in terms of how I felt, and I had no focus and no cognitive ability, I still got an 80 on the regents just because the AP class had taught me so well. And yeah, it kind of becomes a joke. But the AP tests are pretty difficult. They're very long. I don't remember exactly how long, but I think part 1 was like maybe 60 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes, and then there was like another part 2 that was the same thing. And man, no, the day of those AP tests was something. It was a spectacle to behold. There was a sense, there's this very unique sense. There's an air of nervousness among a lot of kids, but also an air of like, at least in my classes, there was like, it was almost like a jokingly like fun atmosphere. Like we made a lot of jokes the day of, if we were taking, the AP literature test, we were praying to the rhetorical triangle that day. When we took the AP US test, we were praying to John Brown. Just like a lot of fun stuff. And that's one thing that I really, really did enjoy about high school, I will say. Overall, my high school experience was okay. It was average, I'd say. But I definitely enjoyed the AP environment. Those classes were some of the most fun I've ever had, just because you learned a lot. And typically when you start taking AP classes, you take AP classes with the same group of kids throughout. So you really get to know them, and you really get to make some really good friends in those classes. And it was just a really fun time. I could only think of 2 AP classes I take that I didn't, outright enjoy. And one of them was AP Calc, which like that's a whole other story that I can get into another day, but like long story short, I didn't really need the AP calculus credit. Like I already had all my math credits to graduate, so I kind of just didn't care, and I only took it out of stupidity, I'd say. And then the other one I didn't really outright enjoy was I took an AP the year I took the Regents was AP Language and Composition. The year after my senior year, I took AP Literature and Composition, which I didn't really enjoy, but that was actually just because, like, one, the literature we read was just, it was so, like, bland and pat, and, like, just the things you'd expect. Like, we read Clockwork Orange, we read The Centaur, we read Heart of Darkness, just like stuff that I really wasn't into, so like the class itself, like the literature we read wasn't really interesting. But for the most part, out of all the AP classes I did enjoy, like I enjoyed most of my AP classes. There was only 2 where I didn't like outright enjoy them, and even then I didn't hate the class. I just didn't find them as enjoyable as other AP classes. Even if you're not in AP classes though, you really do want to make the best of what you got in high school. So one thing, you don't want to slack. And I know it's going to be hard sometimes. You're going to have days where you're just like, screw this, I don't want to do anything. Everyone's telling me I got to do this because I'm going to get into a college, and I just don't care anymore. And that's fine. Honestly, like, don't be afraid to fail. That's one thing that a lot of kids they're terrified of. I can't fail this class. But, I'm not saying that you should give up, because you never want to just straight give up, and I can say that because I did straight give up on a class. You don't want to just give up, but you don't want to be afraid to fail. Don't take a class and try to pass a class with all your effort because you don't want to fail it. There are classes that you're going to take that you can just pass just because it's easy, and you don't need to put any effort to it. But if there are classes that you legitimately enjoy, then put the effort in, man. Like, I'll tell you a story. Going into high school, I didn't like English, not the language. Obviously, I speak it, but I didn't like writing. I didn't really like reading that much. I hadn't read a lot of books that weren't like, I read that, the typical stuff that kids would read. I read the Harry Potter series. I read some Star Wars books. I read some memoirs from, like, people in the military. But, like, in terms of like literature, I didn't really read a whole lot because I found it really boring. And then this all changed when I went into 10th grade. I met a teacher, and he was my English teacher in 10th grade, and I was lucky enough to have him in 10th grade because I was lucky enough to have him in 11th grade when I took his AP class. And he really, outright, is probably the biggest influence on who I am as a person, as far as, outside of my family. He really changed the way I looked at reading, and he really changed the way I looked at writing in a very, very positive way. So when I went into his class in 10th grade, it was the first day, and I'll never forget this. One of the first things that he ever said to me, we were sitting around on the first day after he had gone through his syllabus, and I noticed that there was like some stickers on like the walls and stuff, and I was like, is this your room? Like, because sometimes teachers share rooms in high school, and sometimes they just have a room. So I was like, is this your room? And he goes, well, sometimes I like to go home, but yeah, I do teach here. And like, that pretty much set the tone. Like, he was like really dry humor, but he was funny. Once you really like got to know him, this guy was hilarious. And throughout that that semester, he really did change the way I looked at English. We read some really cool things. Specifically, we read this book called The Stranger by Albert Camus, and that was a great book to read. He really, he made it fun, and he made it fun in a way because he himself was fun. He was fun to be around, and this man was super intelligent. Probably the smartest person I've ever met in my entire life. Just insanely smart. And, he really transferred that passion he had for English and for writing and for reading to his students. Some teachers will just teach to teach, and that wasn't what he was doing. He was teaching because he wanted us to learn. He wanted us to want to learn. So 10th grade was great because I met him, and then I had the pleasure of having him again in 11th grade when I took his AP class. And when I took his AP class, I'll tell you, my writing improved just like tenfold. Like, I wasn't a very good writer to begin with, and the AP class I took was AP Language and Composition, which was a rhetoric class. It's writing for argument, how to craft a positive, or not a positive, but how to craft a good argument. And one of the things that he really took with that class, he said, I'm never going to tell you that you're wrong, unless it's like a factual thing, unless it's like you're trying to tell me 2 + 2 is 3. I'm never going to tell you your argument is wrong as long as you back it up and you write well enough to back it up, which was like, that's great. A lot of teachers sometimes get really hard-nosed in their beliefs and hard-lined, and this is right and this is wrong, right? But he wasn't like that. He very much became somebody who was more guiding us through learning than someone who was teaching at us, and it was great. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is that really take some things with you when you go to high school, because it can change your life. Like, having that one teacher changed my life. I read 1, 2, 3, 4 different things now just off of his recommendations. I read Samuel Beckett's trilogy, so that's 3 different books. I read James Joyce's Portrait of the Artist. I read Dubliners, and I read The Dead. So I've read like 6 things just off of his recommendations, because like he really it's just weird. I don't know. Like, I've never ever had a role model who wasn't someone in my family, and he really was the first one. And even to this day, like, on the side of my goalie mask, I have a quote from him that I really just kind of take with me. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, don't assume all your teachers are just there to teach at you and to ruin your life and give you homework, because you're gonna find teachers that are really there because they love what they do and they want you to learn. And just give them the chance, give high school a chance. I can I say I would want to go back to high school? No. I thoroughly enjoy going to college. I enjoy the opportunities that college has afforded me and the freedoms it has afforded me. But don't just float through your years of high school. If you have the opportunity to do some things in high school, learn some things you never would have learned otherwise, really give your teachers a chance, and really try and connect some of them, because some of those teachers, I would say, they were more friends than they were teachers. Like I had my AP government and politics teacher, an incredibly smart man as well. Definitely one of my favorite teachers I've ever had, period. Absolute wonderful human being. I would say he was more of a friend than he was a teacher. My AP language and composition teacher was absolutely more of a friend than he was a teacher. I still, to this day, would consider him a friend. I haven't seen him in a while, and I should probably go back and see him, but to this day, I would consider him a friend, more than he was so a teacher. So, at the end of the day, high school is what it is, and it is what you make of it. So really, give it a chance. Give your teachers a chance. Don't just, write them off as someone who's trying to just ruin your life, And just, don't be afraid, because, they say that high school is the best 4 years of your life. That's a load of bull. You don't peak in high school. It's not the best 4 years of your life, but it can be one of the better 4 years of your life if you make it that way. So I guess I'm trying, at the end of the day, would I go back to high school? No. Did I enjoy my high school experience? It was all right, but there really were some people that made it stand out to me in my mind that I still take with me today. So those are my thoughts on high school. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. I will try and get more Siege gameplay up for you guys, and I hope to see you guys again next time.